Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my review and in-depth analysis for Logan, a true comic book movie masterpiece. Finally, after almost 20 years, we get an impeccable depiction of Wolverine. You have no idea how elated I was to see this in the movie theater and finally see Wolverine go berserk and let loose as a character, as he's depicted in the comic books. Now, we've gotten glimpses of this throughout the X-Men series for sure, but here I feel like it finally all came together, and the script, the directing finally served Hugh Jackman's performance, because Hugh Jackman has always given it his all. And in the other depictions, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, it was the directing and the screenplay that failed him. And also other movies as well in this series. But here, they finally were able to do it. Everything came together and they made an excellent film. This isn't only just a good comic book movie. This is an outstanding film. It was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Academy Awards. Not that I give a crap about the Academy Awards. Not that it has any merit for me whatsoever. But still, very few comic book movies have received nominations in such categories. So that is great. I absolutely adore this movie. I love this movie, and I can't think of anything wrong with it. I think it's damn near impeccable. It's almost perfect. I mean, there's maybe one thing that I would change, but other than that, I love this film. It is outstanding. And not only that, but this movie has some really prolific themes. So if I were to title this film essay, if this was in the literary form, if this was a written essay, a written film essay, there's numerous titles that I could name it based off the themes in this film. One of them I would call Lost Childhood, Lost Fatherhood. And it's because X-23, the character Laura, she is basically being deprived of her childhood. She's been deprived, and she is going to continue to be deprived of her childhood because of the messed up predicament that she's placed in. You know, human experimentation, abuse, all that stuff. She never had a childhood. And Wolverine, discovering that he has a daughter and having such limited time with her because he's dying, and then he has to sacrifice himself so that his daughter and the other mutants, her comrades, can live. It's lost fatherhood. And it's really touching. He dies so that Laura can live. And it's a beautiful sentiment. It's bittersweet, though, because they didn't know each other for too long. They didn't. Only a couple of days. And they definitely found commonality in their compassion for Professor Xavier. And I also thought that was touching as well. And there's also this kind of inverted relationship between Laura and Logan. And it's that it could be seen in the scene where they are finally at Eden in, I think it was North Dakota. And Logan is basically suffering from a nightmare. And then he wakes up and he asks Laura, "Do you have nightmares?" And she says, yeah, and in my nightmares, people hurt me. And then he says, in my nightmares, I hurt people. And you see little things like this, like they are basically the opposite sides of the same coin. And I love that. Now, another title that you could name this film essay is Life is a Beautiful Struggle. Now, the reason for that is because, when I watch this film, I've heard some criticism towards this film that it's pessimistic, it's so depressing, it's such a downer. And, it may seem that way on the surface, but really, what's at the heart of this film, despite all the ultra violence, is that this is a film about compassion. Because I watched this film and yeah, there's a lot of messed up stuff going on. And it seems depressing and ultra violence. And there's a lot of struggle for the characters. They've been through so much and they're at the twilight of their lives. But for some reason, Wolverine, he keeps on going for Xavier. He wants to save Xavier. And he wants to save Laura. And they keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, no matter all the setbacks. And I think that's beautiful. So an alternative title that I can name this film essay is Life is a Beautiful Struggle. Because even the struggle is hard. It's hard. Life is hard. But there's beauty to behold there. And that's one thing about this movie that is just beautiful is it's the relationships. The character relationships in this movie are touching. They really are. And again, despite all the ultra violence, and let's be clear, this film is super violent. And I'm not going to lie, that is one of the things I loved about this movie. I was like, yeah, finally we get an X-Men with some balls the size of mangoes, man. Like, thank you. But that's just surface level stuff. Underneath this is a message about compassion. And I think that's beautiful. And another thing that Logan has to struggle with is that he's dying in this. The animanium is poisoning him. Which I thought was very interesting. Because he went throughout it. He lived to be hundreds of years old. Seen so much. And now it's this experimentation on him is finally catching up to him. Even though it enhanced his abilities for a while. And yeah, so another important thing to note is that this film is a loose adaptation for the Old Man Logan series written by Mark Miller, which was an outstanding series. But at the end of the day, it doesn't resemble it too much, but it's definitely there. The essence, the spirit of those Old Man Logan comics is present in this film. And I really appreciate that they were able to retain that. And you see here that Patrick Stewart, without a doubt, gives an outstanding performance. I think this is literally the best performance that Patrick Stewart has ever given in his entire film career. I am blown away by his performance as Xavier. And I've never seen an Xavier like this before. And it was really compelling and emotional for me. And again, Patrick Stewart's performance just knocked it out the park. And James, the director, he really knows how to get a good performance out of his actors, man. In every film that he's ever made, James Mangold, the performances from the actors are outstanding. If you've ever seen his film Copland with Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, man, that's like watching a Martin Scorsese film. or a Michael Mann film. Crime epic. Excellent film. That film literally has one of Sylvester Stallone's best performances ever. And it's because Sylvester Stallone doesn't play the typical role that he does, the macho muscle man. In this, in Copland, he plays a vulnerable dude, right? He plays a pushover, and excellent performances. James Mangold knows how to get excellent performances from his actors. Another great example is Girl Interrupted, which is easily Angelina Jolie's best performance. So much so that she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in that film. So the performances from everybody in this film were great. Hugh Jackman gave it his all and was outstanding. Daphne Keane as Laura X-23. When I saw this film in the theater, I was so mesmerized by her because I feel like she literally hit the nail on the head as far as depicting X-23 from the comic books. I think she got it down to a T. She was outstanding. Great. And then the villain, Boyd Holbrook, who played Donald Pierce, the leader of the Reavers. Another great performance. He was an excellent villain. And you know what? I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the Reavers. I mean, they showed up primarily in the late 1990s comic books, Uncanny X-Men, when Cyclops wasn't leading the team. He was leading X-Factor, and the X-Men were basically thought to be dead. And I think they were chilling in Australia. And yeah, the Reavers, that's my memory of the Reavers. And Lady Deathstrike, who in the films was a mutant, but in the comics, she was a Reaver. She wasn't a mutant. She was an enhanced cyborg. And that's what Donald Pierce is here. Anyway, great villain. Great performances, especially Patrick Stewart. And seeing that Xavier has this degenerative brain disease, and he's suffering from these telepathic seizures. And as a result of this, he's literally a walking weapon of mass destruction, because whoever's within his vicinity is going to suffer with him because of his telepathic abilities and not being able to control them. And the fact that he killed all the X-Men except Wolverine is pretty heavy stuff to digest. And it really, I mean, again, life is a beautiful struggle. Despite that, and man, you have to really think about that. I mean, that is immense food for thought. The fact that Professor X killed the X-Men accidentally because of his old age. And I mean, that's powerful. It's sad, and it's such a emotional mountain to climb over for this character. Oh, yeah. And I really, really, really think that substance for the character to struggle with really contributed to this excellent performance that Patrick Stewart gives. And Wolverine basically being the caretaker or the caregiver of this aging Xavier who was suffering from this degenerative brain disease. It's really touching to me. And especially so, and I'm going to get a little personal because I've taken care of elderly people. I still take care of some elderly people. And let me tell you this, man. Growing old is not easy, especially when you're in the twilight of your years. And it's especially not easy if you don't have anybody to care for you. if your family abandons you. Maybe the kids live across state. They don't care if mom or dad are in their late 80s or 90s or whatever, and they live across the country. So what? I got my own family. I mean, that's kind of the American mentality, the individualistic society. And it's sad that that kids don't care about their parents when they're elderly. They get married, they got their own family. It's all about me, me, me. And then no one really cares about mom and dad or grandma, whatever you want to say. And so that, what does that leave? Who's there to care for your aging parents? The state? Oh, don't even get me started on the state. If you've seen my Joker review, I got a lot to say. The state does not give a shit about you. If you think when you're old that the state is going to be there to make sure you got a wheelchair, make sure you got a caregiver, yeah, they'll send you somebody. You'd be lucky if they're literate. You will be lucky if that person is not sitting in your house on their phone the entire time while you're falling over, shitting in your pants. And I'm not even saying that. That's not hyperbole right there, man. I'm not being hyperbolic, in other words. So seeing Xavier in this predicament and seeing Wolverine care for him, it really gets to me. It really does. And one thing about Wolverine, and one thing that really resonates with me personally, on a personal level, is how Wolverine really tries to be the hard ass, on the surface. He tries to be the guy that I don't care, I'll walk away from you. But deep down inside, Wolverine is a compassionate individual. It's just that he buries that compassion because he's been hurt so much. And I could totally relate with that. And to see him caring for an aging Xavier with this degenerative brain disease, despite killing all his team members and the X-Men, and just keep on caring for him, it was very touching for me. It really was. One thing, and this is a little nitpick, and it's not a big deal, is how this film references some of the other films in the series. And to me, this movie takes place in an alternate timeline. So if you watch Days of the Future Past, I really don't think it makes sense to watch this movie right after. I mean, you can, but it really doesn't, because you have to think about some of the dialogue. There's references to other films. They talk about the Liberty Island incident that happened in X-Men 1. Well, if Days of the Future Past happened, then there is no Liberty Island incident. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It got erased from the timeline because of Days of the Future Past. And they even mention X-Men Origins, Wolverine. So I don't think that this would take place after Days of the Future Past. If anything, this would take place after X-Men 2, and for me, X-Men 1, because I'm not a fan of X-Men 2. So I watch X-Men 1 and then jump to this. Or X-Men Origins and then X-Men 1. But basically, if my memory serves me well, they reference X-Men 1 and X-Men Origins. So that's part of the timeline leading up into this film. Now, I prefer it if this film didn't reference anything and it was just its own standalone thing, but that's just a little nitpick, just something that I wanted to mention. Now, one thing about this film, like I said, and I mentioned ultra-violence, but really, the action scenes in this film are spectacular. I absolutely love them. And what I love about them is the simplicity of them. It's not over-the-top CGI bullshit, in other words. It's simple action. Really. I mean, sure, there's CGI in there, but it's used minimally, right? Basically, this entire film is just people getting chopped, sliced, and impaled by Wolverine and Laura, X-23. And I love the simplicity of the action, especially when it's juxtaposition with the score. The score to this movie is great. I absolutely love it. But what makes these action scenes so awesome is that they're suspenseful. Why? Because of the characters. This is a character-driven film. These action sequences are epic and suspenseful because we actually care about the characters. And that's not an easy thing to do, in my opinion. So many films have these overproduced, excessively budgeted action films that are over the top, but I'm watching it and I'm like bored out of my mind because I really don't care what's going on, because they didn't work enough to make me care as an audience member. The character development, the character relationships, whatever predicament they're in, I'm not emotionally invested. But this film succeeds in all those departments. Now, I love, again, the simplicity, the focus on character, and how we focus on emotion. And really, what this film really is a Western. This is a Western to me. And I love that because I'm a huge fan of Westerns. And that's what this film feels like. And also the previous Wolverine entry, the Wolverine that took place in Japan, it kind of felt like a Western. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the situations that the characters get put in and things like that. And there's even like a little tribute to Westerns when you see the references to the classic Western film Shane in this movie. So the tone of this film is like a Western, and I really appreciate that. Now, coming back to the theme of this lost childhood, lost fatherhood thing, Wolverine basically has to save the child he never knew. And he is compassionate, and he tries to hide that. He tries to hide it behind a hard shell. And why? Not only is Wolverine a man who has endured a lot of pain, so he has to bury his compassion deep within him. But also, it's like he says later in the film, bad stuff happens to people I care about. And when he says that to Laura, he's basically saying, like, look, I got you to North Dakota. You're at Eden. I'm out of here. And Laura wants him to stick around, obviously as a father figure. But he's like, no, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And he says, because bad stuff happens to the people I care about. And then what does she say? She says, well, then I'll be fine. You know, she's obviously hurt. And then Wolverine is like, it's inferred. You have to be an idiot not to pick up on this. It's not that he wants to leave her because he doesn't care. It's because he does care. He wants to leave because he cares. Because bad stuff happens to people he cares about. And this is the struggle of Wolverine. And this leads me to what I said about this film. One title you could give the film analysis is Life is a Struggle. And Wolverine, you could see this compassion in Wolverine when he's trying to save Xavier. He's trying to save him and Caliban, but he doesn't plan on being alive. He's dying, and this is kind of why he keeps that adamantium bullet around, right? And this bullet is obviously a reference to X-Men Origins. And, you know, that whole bullet thing, and I really don't like, I got mixed feelings about it as far as how it was dealt with in X-Men Origins, Wolverine. Because in the comic books, his mind wiping and stuff like that is more on some MK Ultra stuff, and not a bullet damaging his brain and now he can't remember. I mean, what does Stryker says, his brain will grow back, but not his memories. Like, how the hell do you know that, dude? But whatever. I don't want to talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine. So, Wolverine continues to struggle. He wants to walk away, but it's like he can't run away from his compassionate heart. And I love that. He decides to take it upon himself to take Laura to Eden. Saving Laura also for Xavier is redemption. So this film has another theme, and it's that of redemption. What do I mean? Xavier literally killed all the X-Men accidentally as a result of his degenerative brain disease and the seizures it induces. And saving Laura is an act of redemption for him because mutants are few and far in between. They're rare in this timeline. And for Xavier to discover another young mutant, a young mutant at that, him trying to save her is like a form of redemption. And I thought that was great. Great. Again, Xavier is such a great character here. And like I mentioned, the Reavers are great villains. And we also have Stryker's son being like the lead experiment, the lead scientist running the experiments on Laura and her fellow comrades. And, you know, I mean, that was kind of shoehorned in there. I really didn't need this scientist dude to be Stryker's son. That felt kind of contrived, forced. I mean, what a coincidence, right? But, I mean, whatever. That's like a nitpick to me. Now, I love the scene, just the whole interactions between Xavier and Wolverine are just some of the greatest performances that this X-Men series has ever had, man. I mean, I particularly love the scene when Xavier says to Wolverine, "We took you in. I gave you a family. When I found you, you were a cage fighter," and things like that. And it's like he's saying, now you have to take care of me. And you can see how much of a pain in the ass it really is to take care of Xavier. And it's just beautiful drama, really. The performances here. And Caliban was great in this film. So much better than his version in X-Men Apocalypse. Not that I hated it, but his version in Apocalypse, he was kind of just weirdo. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. But here, he feels like a full-fledged character. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Caliban was some awesome character in the comic books. He was totally whatever, for me, in my opinion. A forgettable Morlock character. I could care less about Caliban. I really could. But here, Stephen Merchant played an outstanding version of Caliban. He did a great job. And I thought he was a great character in this film. Now, I love how Laura acts, you know, when she's engaging in all these action sequences. She does it with so much confidence. She acts like she's done this kind of stuff before. Like she's a seasoned warrior. I absolutely love that. Thought that was great. And all those sequences, you know, where it's shown all this child mutant experimentation. I mean, that stuff was brutal. And that stuff was depicted masterfully. I mean, this is kind of what I wanted to see in those experiments that William Stryker was allegedly doing in X-Men 2 as far as the past and X-Men Origins. And we never see how the subjects feel. We don't see that. But here we see the trauma. We see that. And I really love seeing the children fight back and seeing the ferocity and how they fight back against the people trying to capture him, the Reavers, and all that. The way the other films depict that, it just feels really juvenile in its direction, but here it feels real. And that's really what I love about this film. Everything feels real, like it's really happening. And they did an outstanding job. Again, James Mangold is great with actors. He knows how to get great performances out of his actors. Now, the whole little sequence with the farmers being ran off the road by AI trucks, and then Xavier and Wolverine helping them out, and it leading to their deaths. That's my whole least favorite portion of this film. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, poorly written, badly acted. I'm not saying anything negative as far as filmmaking goes. It's well done. It's just, I just want to say it's my least favorite part of this film. We kind of slow down, but it is kind of cliche. It's kind of a trope, like, let's help out these people. And then one of the characters is like, no, we need to keep on moving. And then the other's like insisting, no, we should help them. And then by helping them, it turns out that you kill them. Like, you helping them actually contributed to their destruction. I've seen that numerous times before in other movies. And that's literally probably like the only true criticism that I have for this film. But aside from this film is perfect, in my opinion. I absolutely love this film. And yeah, that's basically what happens. And it's unfortunate because this family, these farmers, turned out to be collateral damage in regards to the Reavers coming after Wolverine and I guess you want to say the evil version of Wolverine going in there and slaughtering this family. It was sad. It really was. And it was especially sad to see the death of Xavier. That was so sad. It really was. To see Xavier die like that. And when he got killed, I mean, he's literally saying that this is probably the most beautiful moment that he's had in a long time since he's accidentally killed the X-Men. And he says, I don't deserve this. And he's in tears alone by himself. And then the Wolverine clone comes in there and kills him. And he probably thinks that it's Logan killing him. I mean, can you imagine what's going through his mind at this point in his life, or as he dies? And then the other Logan, the real Logan rather, comes in and is telling him, it wasn't me. I mean, and there's not enough time to explain what the hell's going on. And then he dies. That's such a sad, fucked up way to die. It really was. I mean, it hurt my soul to see that. Now, I really think there's a significant level of symbolism seeing Wolverine fight himself, because you got the clone evil version of Wolverine fighting Logan. And that is, without a doubt, very symbolic, in my opinion. Because Wolverine is a character who is constantly at war with himself. Like I've said, he tries to bury his compassion deep within himself because he doesn't want to get hurt and because he doesn't want to hurt the people he cares about. So he's always trying to struggle with whether he should help people or stick to himself and be a loner. And he tries to be a hard ass. But in the end, he always comes through and helps the people he cares about. So he's a character that's always at war with himself. And this, I totally thought it was 1,000% appropriate for Wolverine's last battle before he dies to be with himself. Like literally. For him to fight a clone of himself was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. because it's highly symbolic. It really is. And that scene when he buries Xavier is another example of him trying to convince himself not to care. He tries to abandon Laura. He tries to abandon her. Because it was so painful. It's so painful to see this happen to the people you care about. And he doesn't want it to happen to Laura. So I'm out of here. I'm going to take off. You're better off on your own. But he can't do it. He can't turn his back on the people that he loves. And this right here really nailed it home as to why Wolverine is such a beautiful character. Why he's such an outstanding character. Why he's one of the most iconic X-Men characters. Not only X-Men characters, but Marvel characters. And why he's soared in popularity. It's not just because he has knives that come out of his hands. It's because of the depth of his character. You know, it's because of so many readers identify with him. They relate to him. And this movie really hit the nail on the head as far as conveying that to the audience. Now, when Laura finally talks, I think the chemistry between Laura and Wolverine is great. The actors Daphne Keane and Hugh Jackman have a beautiful, beautiful chemistry. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I mean, these scenes are great. And I would love to see them somehow reunite in a serious film. I'm not talking about Deadpool and Wolverine and some comedic nonsense. I would love to see them together in a film again because they had great chemistry. And I could totally buy the notion that they are father and daughter. It really felt that way. Now, the action sequences at the end of this film, again, they're awesome. The final showdown between Wolverine and his evil version or his clone, the way Laura and her comrades, the young X-Men children, fight off the Reavers was great. And then I absolutely love how Wolverine shoots Stryker's son in the face, just ruthlessly, like in the middle of his speech. That was completely badass. Totally love this. And then Wolverine gives it his all in an attempt to save his daughter and her fellow comrades. And because of that, he dies. And that last line of dialogue, or that last moment when he's dying and when he says, "So this is what it feels like." I mean, that was such an amazing performance by Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman is an outstanding actor. And I really think as beloved as he is by the comic book fandom, comic book movie fandom, I think he's underappreciated as an actor in general. But yes, just the way he died, his death scene, that was so brilliantly acted. And the way he said that line, "So this is what it feels like." And then Laura says, "Daddy." And she cries. So touching. Such an amazing and perfect way for Wolverine to go out. I can't think of a better way. It was touching. It was emotionally powerful. I absolutely loved it. And you see, the children survive. Laura and her comrades, the children, survived so that the next generation of mutants can live. And even though you could say it's pessimistic because all the X-Men are dead, really though, they're not. Because now because of their sacrifices, Xavier and Wolverines, the next generation of mutants can live. And I thought that was a beautiful ending. This film is damn near impeccable. Damn near perfect. I give it an A+ easily. I absolutely love this movie. Thank you guys for listening to this review and in-depth analysis for the film Logan. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. Take care, people. And last but not least, one love.